Hi, everyone. I am so excited. I am so excited because today is launch day for my book, Personal Branding for Introverts, 10/28/2025. Yay! Um, I am so excited. This book took truly forever to write and to get out there. And what is the most exciting part about this book, and I'm going to put it down for a second, is that I wrote it during my cancer and my chemotherapy journey, and it was such a big and personal deal to write it and to have it come out. I think I honestly started this process of thinking about this book in 2017, which of course now feels like a decade ago, even if it wasn't actually a decade ago. So this book means so much to me. And I'm so excited that you get to share part of my launch day with me. So I am actually right now, this is pre-recorded. Sorry to spoil the magic for you. But right now I'm currently at Adobe Max, which is Adobe's largest creativity conference. It is very cool and I am running around, and I'll probably upload a couple of other pictures and videos as well in addition to this one. But I wanted to say, if we can drop the link to this, if you are interested in pre-ordering this book, or actually I would say ordering this book, it's no longer in pre-order. If you're interested in ordering this book, I'm going to drop a link. You can find all of the places to order my book on my amazing website. So I hope that you will find some of it really helpful and interesting. I'll say this, I got an early review on Goodreads from someone I don't know. Yay, I always want to thank mom, but this one is from somebody I don't know, and they said that this book is like a very comfortable chat with a well-meaning friend who just wants them to have a personal brand. It's not a lecture. It's not someone yelling at you. Who here is an introvert who's had an extrovert yell at them? Me. So this book is not that. This book is meant to be the most helpful, tactical conversation that you have with a friend, me, about personal branding and about growing your presence both online and offline. So I hope in that respect that it is so helpful for you to be able to discover some of the things that you've struggled with. In fact, I'm going to do this. It's so fun to be able to do this with a physical book. I'm not going to read Praise for Personal Branding for Introverts because you can jump in and read that too. But I'm going to go over some of the chapter titles. And once again, it's so exciting to have a physical book. But chapter 1, Are You an Introvert? This is my chapter where you can find out, are you an introvert? But I bet if you're watching this, you probably know if you are an introvert or an extrovert or an ambivert, or there's a new term out there for this year, outrovert. Chapter 2, Why Personal Branding Matters. Chapter 3, Setting Your Goals. It's so important to set your goals. And in fact, one of the interviews I do, you might talk more about goals. Chapter 4, Overcoming Overwhelm. So many of us feel overwhelmed in this day and time. So it's helpful to think about ways that we can overcome some of that. Chapter 5, The Internet is for Introverts. I love thinking about how helpful it is that the internet now exists. And as an introvert, you are more able to create your personal brand asynchronously, which means creating it without doing it in real time. Okay, then chapter 6, Lean on your community. Community is so important for building any personal brand, whether you're an introvert or extrovert. Chapter 7, Partner with Extroverts. I couldn't write a book about introverts without including a chapter or a part about extroverts. So that's my part about extroverts. Yes, I quote a ton of amazing extroverts in this book. Chapter 8, The Rechargeable Introvert. Once again, maybe raise your virtual hand. Who here has an introvert battery that has felt utterly drained at the end of a conference or a big event? That's me. I made this chapter for all of us who feel drained by social events or corporate events, or when you're at a conference and you just say, I literally don't want to be here anymore. In fact, I give a good example in the book. I know where to hide in the Prime Minister's garden. 10 Downing Street. And the reason why I know where to hide is because I was at a networking event there. I was not briefly, but for a couple of years, I was an ambassador, an entrepreneurial ambassador for the city of London. And we had all sorts of networking events at 10 Downing Street. And I learned where you can hide in the garden. There's a back corner. It's right next to this large wooden chair, in case you're ever wondering if you're an introvert that ever has to go to 10 Downing and you're in the garden for a networking event. That's where I hid. It is an amazing hiding place. Anyways, getting back to some more of the chapters, chapter 9, The Successful Introvert. I really want to help you redefine what success is, because so many of us define success nowadays, especially on the internet, as I got thousands of likes on a social media post. And success is so much more nuanced than that, right? And I think all of us have different ideas and different things that fill us with joy when we feel successful. And then finally, conclusion, and then, of course, an incredibly long acknowledgement, because so many people helped me write this book. This book was not created in a vacuum, although sometimes, especially if you're a writer, it feels like you are creating in a vacuum. But this book was made with so many people, and so many folks helped me. So many gracious folks did interviews or did blurbs. And even now, I think by the time this goes live, I will have done almost 50 podcasts about this particular book. So I've done a lot of podcasts and a lot of talking with folks about this book and about introverts and about personal branding and about all the ways that we can show up online and offline. So, really quickly, one of the most common questions that I get about personal branding in general is, what is the difference between personal branding and reputation? So, reputation to me is the story that others tell when you're not in the room. And personal branding is the story that you say when you are in the room. And that room can be virtual. I recently did a podcast with Chris Do, who some of you might know. He's pretty big here on LinkedIn, and he is so amazing. And he said, wait, so if I'm not in the room, but he's like, I don't like being in all these rooms all the time. And I said, the room can be virtual. And this is the power of personal branding too. I want to say that one of the most amazing things about growing your personal brand. I just spoke with a room full of introverts last week. And one of the things that they got really excited about when I talked about personal brand is that when you have the right personal brand, these opportunities will start to come to you. And as an introvert, doesn't that sound wonderful that you don't have to do thousands of cold outreach messages or pick up the phone and call a million people? I know introverts hate phone calls. Or that you don't have to attend a million conferences in order to get your next job, in order to get your next client, or if you're currently at a workplace, a corporate workplace, to get your next level up, or to even, if you're looking to switch jobs, get your different and better job. So there's so many ways in which a personal brand can help you. But anyways, let's get back to thinking about what is happening for today. So I'm so honored to have Kim Kaupe with me on launch day. She is a brilliant entrepreneur and founder of Bright Ideas Only, and she's known for helping brands and leaders connect in real time with their audiences. And she's just a really wonderful and kind person. I'm equally thrilled to have Sheena Yap Chan, who is a speaker, a podcaster, a Wall Street Journal author of The Tao of Self-Confidence and her new book, Bridging the Confidence Gap. And she's inspired thousands of women, thousands of API women to embrace their voice and visibility. So two amazing women are joining me today. So I hope you'll stay tuned in to hear some of their wonderful insights. I will hopefully also do this as a replay, but I hope you stay tuned in to hear what they have to say about personal branding, about showing up, about being an introvert in a landscape that feels so optimized for extroverts. And I'll say this, I have a section in my book that's actually titled Loud Introverts for a reason, because I believe that introverts, when they get excited, when they get passionate, when they care, they can also become loud too. And it's not in an obnoxious or overwhelming way. It's in a genuinely excited and interested and an engaged way. So I hope you will join me in also being a loud introvert and sharing more about what you do and your expertise online. Okay, so I also want to jump back in and say one of the things that I have been doing is I have been reaching out to not all of, but a large portion of my 101,000 followers on LinkedIn, asking folks to consider buying the book, asking folks, do they know any introverts that might be interested in learning more about the book, connecting with new people. So I myself have been in the weeds doing outreach. So if you've gotten a message from me and you're watching this, yes, it was me. No, it wasn't a chatbot. It was 100% me sending you that message. So I hope that if you got one of those messages, that you read it and that you, if you know any introverts, please forward that along to them. Or if you are yourself an introvert, that you consider ordering Personal Branding for Introverts, this amazing book that took me so many years, so many crying days to write and work on. Okay, so we have a couple more minutes left. And in that, I want to share a couple of the wins that I've done so far with this book. So first of all, back to that 50 podcasts. I've guested on almost 50 podcasts, live streams, online digital chats with so many people about this book, and it hasn't even launched yet. And I'm so excited that I can say that on launch day. And I also just had this massive milestone. I had a few people tell me, okay, getting number one on Amazon isn't a big deal. Goldie, if you don't get it, it's totally okay. And I want to say, okay, so I got number one in new release on Amazon. And like, I don't know, explosion. It is such a personally such a big deal to me that so many of you, and I know buying books isn't easy, right? All of us have limited budgets. So thank you everyone who has bought a copy of the book. And I hope if you haven't, you'll consider buying a copy. But I reached number one in new releases before it even went live, blowing my mind. Thank you, everyone who has bought a copy on Amazon, on Bookshop, on Barnes and Noble. There's a million places to buy books. And in fact, I'm doing all of my signed copies of my book are going to be through You and Me Books, which is an amazing AAPI-owned bookstore that spotlights a lot of wonderful POC and immigrant voices that's located in Chinatown, New York. And I'll also be doing my very first book event, my first signing book event there on November 2nd. I will be there with a million pieces of merch. Truly, I don't even have one out yet, but I have bookmarks, I have keychains, I have so many things that if you come to one of my book launch events, I will give you so much merch because I don't know, I love free stuff. I love merch. Merch is really, really fun. So that's something anyways that's big that happened. I also have a ton of events that are going to be happening between now and December. And then in the new year, I'll be debuting a couple of new talks where I'll be talking about the herd framework, where I'm going to hopefully help you be more heard in the workplace and in your personal life. So I am so excited for all of this. In fact, it looks like we are almost at time. So what I will say is thank you so much for joining me on my book launch day. I hope you'll consider picking up a copy if you haven't already. And with that being said, thank you so much for tuning in. And let's go to our first amazing guest. Hi, everyone. We are back with our first guest, and it's a delight to introduce Kim Kaupe, a true champion of self-investment and the entrepreneurial spirit, who, after securing multiple offers on Shark Tank, built her successful fan engagement agency, Bright Ideas Only, working with icons like Oprah and Paul McCartney. Kim's mission is to empower professionals to see and showcase the rock star leader that they already are, teaching them to harness their voice and expand their network. As an expert in personal branding and thriving under the spotlight, Kim is the perfect guide for our conversation today on visibility, overwhelm, and how introverts can master the art of stepping into their own light. Kim, welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
I'm so excited to have you here. We're just going to jump in. We have so many fun questions to ask. I'm so
Let's do
excited to
it.
have you as a guest. So, Kim,
Me too.
yes. Okay. So, when you think about personal branding, what's one misconception you wish more people, especially introverts, could let go of?
I feel like the biggest misconception that I hear all the time from people is, well, it doesn't matter to me. The personal brand doesn't matter to me. Like, that's for the extroverts in the room. That's for the loud people. That's for the people that want a promotion. That's for the people that want to be in senior management. I just kind of want to hang back. I'm cool in my position. I don't want to get that raise. I don't want to get that promotion. I'm happy where I am. And I think it's the biggest misconception because, like it or not, we all have a personal brand, or,
Yeah.
some people might call it a reputation. In the office, are you the one that is, wow, you remember every single person's birthday? Or wow, you're always showing up on time to the marketing meeting. Or we know we can always count on you if we need an extra weekend shift covered. You have a reputation, you have a personal brand, whether you know it or not. And so the thing that I always say is, if you have it no matter what, then why not craft it to be the best that it can be? Because there is no ignoring it. You have it. So it's time to actually lean in and mold it to what you want it to be ultimately for yourself.
And I think that's so powerful what you said, that you have a personal brand no matter what. So if you have one, you might as well be really thoughtful about how you were handling it, right? And what you're saying about your own personal brand. So I'm going to skip to a totally different question. I actually have a list of questions, but I'm going to go to the one of the last ones because I think that this one you are going to, Kim, have such a good answer for. How do you personally decide what to say yes to and what do you gracefully decline in order to stay aligned with your own personal brand?
So I'm a yes person. Which is, like, sometimes a bad quality. Like,
Right.
I am the one who is always like, "Of course I can, like, volunteer on Saturday. Of course I can do the church group. Of course I get," like, I am a little bit of, like, FOMO. So one thing that I've really practiced that I've had to do, and I'm actually looking at it here on my computer, I have a bunch of, I'm sure everybody has these as well, like, Post-it notes. So
Yes.
I have 2 or
Yes.
3 Post-it notes that have sort of, like, my goals, and I have to look at those before I say yes to anything, to say, is this actually aligned with my goal? So I'll give you an example. One of the things that I wanted to really make sure that I did well in 2025 is to really be there for my parents. Like, I put, like, good daughter was on my list. And so one of the things I said to myself was, like, how do I show up to be a good daughter? Well, I make time to call my parents, 2 or 3 times a week. I make sure to go and visit them once a quarter. So as I'm thinking about, can I say yes to things? Can I take this speaking engagement? Or, can I do this extra assignment? If I look and say, well, I said I was going to see my parents every quarter, and I'm really only traveling once or twice a month. If I take this speaking gigs, it means I probably won't see my parents.
Right.
That's when I have to say, like, okay, even though the speaking gig sounds amazing, it's not actually helping me towards my goal, which my one goal this year, among many, was to, be a good daughter to my parents. So that's something that I have found in practice for me, kind of keeping those post-it notes on my computer is number one. And number two, another thing that really helps me is, again, like I said, I'm usually an immediate yes person. So
Right.
now I've tried to be really careful that when somebody asks me something, can you do this with us? Or can you help me with this? I say to them, I think the answer is yes.
Mhm.
Let me get back to you tomorrow. Let me check with my husband, or let me check with my co-founder, or let me check with my calendar, because I do what is natural, which is the yes, but I preface that by saying, yes, but let me actually check, because then sometimes once I sit with it for a night, I go, well, it would be nice to volunteer for that soup kitchen over Thanksgiving, but I told my parents I would come home 2 days early and spend some more quality time with them. So actually, I can't do that volunteer opportunity.
Yeah, and I think that what you just said is so good. First of all, you made sure that you know what your goals are, right? So you clarified your goals first. And then I think the very powerful thing that you did was you prioritized your goals. I think so many of us, we have 20 million different goals out there, and especially with our personal brand, especially with career. But I also love, Kim, that what you said was you are really prioritizing things in your work and your life because so many people they only talk about just the career goals or they talk about only the life goals. And I think that everything is so holistic. Would you agree?
1000%. I mean, I totally do not believe in this fallacy that, like, you can do it all. You can be like the best mom and the best daughter and the best sister and the best businesswoman and you can't, right? It's all decisions, it's all trade-offs, it's all what is going to be okay in this season. Maybe in this season, I'm a great daughter, but I'm kind of a crappy co-founder. And maybe in the next season, I'm an amazing co-founder and, like, I'm not doing so well in the wife department. Like, I think it's all choices and, trying to strike that ever elusive balance that we're all,
Right.
kind of on the journey to find. But yeah, I absolutely believe in your work goals and your personal goals should be one big list. I don't think it should be like church and state.
Yeah, I think that that's so good. So I'm going to skip over to something else, which we've maybe lightly touched on is what is the role that community plays in your personal brand, especially for those out there who are maybe a little bit more on the more uncomfortable side with promoting themselves.
I think the most powerful thing that I've seen in terms of community and personal brand is telling one or two people at work, or if you work for yourself, maybe it's a co founder, or if you work for yourself, maybe it's a fellow entrepreneur or consultant or like 1099 hire, telling them what your goals are, because nothing will keep you more accountable than that friend at work or that co-founder or that colleague who went, didn't you say that you wanted to speak up more in the sales meeting? You know, Here we are in Q3 and you really haven't been speaking up that much. So I think sometimes we get a little shy or we get a little bit like, well, I don't want to burden, Cynthia. She doesn't
Yeah.
want to hear about my goals. Yes, she does. And one thing I always say to people is, if the same thing was happening to you, if Cynthia came to you and said, "Hey, Goldie, can I take you to lunch? I want to talk to you about some things with work." And Cynthia confided into you, like, "Hey, I really need help, speaking up in the marketing meetings." Would you say to yourself, well, what a dumb lunch? I can't
Yeah.
believe Cynthia brought me here. What an idiot. You'd say, oh
Right.
my gosh, of course, thank you for telling me, Cynthia. I'm happy to help you, speak up more in the marketing meeting. So that's one thing that I always try to kind of envision in my head. If this was somebody else coming to me with this same thing, how would I react? And it's usually with compassion and grace. So, let that be a leader for you, that you feel confident going to somebody in your workspace and saying, hey, here are my two or three goals. Can you help keep me honest? It's, I always call it the old gym method. I will skip the gym. I will skip Pilates. I will skip those workouts every day of the week. But if my friend is there going TikTok, you told me you'd meet me at this Pilates class at 9 a.m. I am much more likely to attend when I have that sort of accountability factor.
Well, first of all, I love Pilates too, so I'm so glad that you do Pilates. Yay. But also I think that having an accountability partner is so helpful whenever you are trying to get to your goals, and a bunch of different accountability partners in different areas of your life are essentially what makes up your community, right? That they make up the people that are going to help you get to where you need to go. And also, if you do have a big goal, like you're like, I want to work out and do Pilates 3 times a week. And my friend is there and she's there every single day of the week. So I will go with her 3 times a week to go handle that. I think that finding people also that do maybe more than you do so you can tag along to part of what they do, if that makes sense. I think a lot about my friends also who are runners, and they have sometimes runner partners, runner friends, and then some of the runners run a lot more than others, but it's all about finding, right? It's all about finding people that will do at least the same amount, if not more than you do. And of course, this applies to work too. There was a while I know that I was co-working with one of my friends, and we did a co-working session once or twice a week on a certain day at a certain time, because she was also very much a homebody. So she's like, I need to get out of the house. Can you come with me to go work outside the house? And like you said, right? The first thing I thought of was, yes, of course. The first thing you usually think of is, of course, right?
Of course.
Yes, of course. So you always want to be super helpful, and you always want to offer help and offer support when you can, but it's so natural to do that, especially with people that you like and you care about. It just comes out so naturally. So let's get this. I love talking about seasons. Kim, you mentioned seasons earlier. When you're faced with a season of doubt or exhaustion, as we all have been, what helped reconnect you to your purpose?
I think when I have those moments of just feeling super overwhelmed or like balls are falling in the air left and right, and I'm feeling that burnout and I'm feeling that sort of self doom
Yes.
spiral down, down, down. One thing that really helps ground me a lot is again coming back to those goals, coming back to those post-it notes. And you touched on it earlier. I think a lot of times when we sit down, as we get into the end of the year or as we start off the top of the year, we have 20 things we want to get done. We want to clean out the garage and start
Right,
the business and get a six pack and take
right.
up Pilates. And, it's like, okay, well, let's get a I call it getting a little more realistic. Let's get a little more realistic. And let's maybe pick 2
Kim, that will be
or
the title of
3,
your book if you write a book. It's getting more realistic
get a little
with
more
Kim.
realistic. Let's pick 2 or 3 goals. So when I'm feeling that burnout and I'm feeling that overwhelm and I revisit those 2 or 3 goals, what I often find is I have strayed from those 2 or 3 goals. I've chased the shiny ball. I've been like squirrel, squirrel. And I've said yes to things and I've, taken on work and I've kind of I've lost track of those
Right.
3. So when I'm feeling overwhelmed, I tend to revisit those 2 or 3 things, number 1, and then the second thing I do, which is so important that I feel like so many people struggle with and so many people don't actually do, is you have to tell other people that you are drowning.
Yeah.
Because if not, other people on your team or other people that you're volunteering with, or your husband, or your partner, or your parents will think, wow, that's weird. I called Kim 6 days ago and she hasn't responded. Maybe she's
Right.
mad at me.
Right.
They start going in their own head. So the other thing you have to do is vocalize to other people, which I know is uncomfortable. You have to say, hey, full disclosure, I took on too much. The past 2 weeks, I've said yes to too much. I can't call you back. Turns out I can't volunteer for that thing. I have to kind of reprioritize. I'm so sorry, but I'm drowning. And that it's as simple as that. I'm so sorry. I took on too much. I'm drowning. It's my fault. You're saying it's not your fault. I'm not mad at you. I'm not calling you back. I'm not showing up late on purpose, it's my fault. I took on too much right now, and now I'm trying to like crawl out of that. So I think those two things really come back to what your main goals are. And number two, please communicate that to other people that you're drowning.
So I don't have this as a question on my list, but let's get into communication because I think communication is, of course, one of the cornerstones of building a personal brand, but it's also one of the cornerstones of just having a better life because people know what's going on with you. So I'd love to hear just one or two tips on how to better communicate with the people that you spend the most time with in your life. So that might be your coworkers, that might be your partner, that might be a variety of different people, but what are one or two different things that you can do to improve your communication?
I think for what helps me sort of improve my communication and really capture the time I have with people in an efficient way is when I'm catching up with people, I'm always thinking about two things. Number one, I'm going to tell them something that I'm struggling with, even if it makes no sense. So let's say I'm really struggling with something at work and I'm talking to my friend from college who's in a different state, in a different job, in a different business. You might think, well, why are you telling her? She works in at an electric company, and you're telling her about a marketing problem you have. You have no idea the insight that you can get from people that
Yes.
are outside of your bubble. So, number one, I always talk about something that I'm struggling with, no matter who I'm catching up with or who I'm talking to. So, something that I'm struggling with. And then number two, I really think ahead of time, is there anything I could use this person's help with? And again, that could be personal or work life. So for instance, I had dinner last night, it was Sunday night with my in-laws. And I thought about this week and I thought about we just got this new puppy and like things that are going on. And I said to my mother-in-law, if you end up going to Costco, let me know because I actually might have a few things that you could pick up for me. What it does for her makes her feel like, "Oh, great, I'm being helpful." And for me, it saves me a trip to Costco. So
Right.
even just taking those 5 to 10 minutes before you meet with somebody and think about, is there a problem that I could share with them to maybe get their opinion on? And number 2, is there anything that they could help me with? And it doesn't have to be something physical, like in the example I gave. It could be something like, hey, I'm really looking for an introduction work wise to somebody who handles payment processors.
Right.
If you can think of anybody, let me know. And again, that person might say, well, it's funny you mentioned that. My sister's boyfriend, who was over for dinner
Right.
last night, he actually works at a payment processor. Like, I'll put you guys on an email. Maybe he can help. So I think examples like that in terms of that community, in terms of like making the most out of that conversation, I think that those can be extremely powerful and really beneficial for you.
I think that's such a wise way to think about it. So, really, just to recap, one is to have one clear ask, right? One clear and well defined ask. And then the second one is then also to talk about something that you're struggling with, regardless of if it relates to what that person's, interests or what their life experience might evolve, because you never know what insight they have. And first of all, I love, Kim, what you said about talking to people outside of your bubble. Yes, like I'm 1,000% for this. I think so many of us, we end up in our own little tiny bubbles where we talk to the same, I would say, depends on how many people you talk to, but like at least we talk to the same 5 to 10 people all the time. We get the same advice from the same 5 or 10 people. So, with that being said, how do we expand outside of our comfort bubble of those, say, 5 people that we already talk to without doing something that might be overwhelming or scary?
One thing that I found to be really powerful is, selfish plug for LinkedIn. I think that
Yes.
LinkedIn and like the community that you can build on there digitally, really helps remove you from your bubble
And Kim,
of,
a shameless plug for you. You have an amazing show on LinkedIn. So everyone, please go watch Kim's show.
Totally. You could go to getcoffeewithkim.com and it'll give you all the info. But I
Yep.
think, having a community that is, again, sort of outside of your bubble. So, like, for example, I live in Austin, Texas. I kind of have my entrepreneur friends that live here and my sort of regular friends that live here. And I see them all the time and we go for walks and we go for brunch. And, I'm yapping about my problems and yapping about things I need help with. And I think sometimes then when I sort of transfer over, or to your point, I want to get out of that bubble, one place that I go to is I do have a few, LinkedIn friends or digital friends, if you will, that maybe I've never met them in real life, but we've Zoomed before or we've exchanged messages, and I'll ping them with stuff. I'll say, like, "Hey Jeff, what do you think about this?" Or, "Hey Jen, what's something that you think I could add in here?" And I think sort of being able to access the beauty with the internet, you can access people in different states, in different time zones, in different countries. And it doesn't have to be, necessarily in Austin, Texas, where I live. I think that to me has been extremely helpful.
So I think, first of all, knowing that you can be fearless with a little bit of some of your asks, really getting out there and saying, okay, once again, I have something that I need help with. Maybe they can help me, maybe they can't. And I think also lowering the expectation that they will definitely help you makes those asks a little easier, because you should never, of course, go into an ask thinking, of course, I'm going to get help, right? But also, the internet is an entirely new room that we're all part of. And of course, the shout out LinkedIn too, where this is streaming. LinkedIn, I think, is a great place. So if you don't already have a profile there, or if you're worried about standing out on LinkedIn, it is a great place to start making new contacts. And the interesting thing about LinkedIn is you will run into people who are more work oriented because they are active on LinkedIn. So there's a variety of different places that you can meet people, and LinkedIn is certainly one. And there's so many groups. I don't know, Kim, about you, but I'm certainly in a ton of Facebook groups, Discord groups. I'm in so many online groups. Are you also in various online groups and little chats as well?
100%. And I also just feel like, another thing to add is you can't just have one person on your list. To your point earlier of, like, that person's not always going to have the answer, that person's not always going to have the best advice. You can't just say, "Well, I contacted one LinkedIn person, I contacted Goldie." It's like, no, you got to do a little bit of, like, the spray and pray method.
Right.
You got to spray the question across 5 of your LinkedIn contacts, and maybe you get 4 answers back. Maybe one of the answers is a little wonky. 3 of them are pretty good. One of them is really good. You kind of got to play the Vegas odds a little bit for how good of an answer. You can't just think, well, the first person I reach out to is going to have the most amazing answer, get back to me right away, and also be an expert on the subject.
So I
Not
have
likely.
to ask, because I know that the folks listening to this, a lot of them are introverts. And a lot of them might be a little anxious about reaching out to someone for the first time, especially on a platform like LinkedIn, where you feel like, well, I always hear this from other people, well, I don't want to bother them, right? I don't want to bother this person. I don't want to bother this other person. I don't want to come across as feeling or seeming desperate, right? We want to avoid the D word at all costs. So how can we change that energy, and how can we come across as more, of course, my two favorite words are calm and confident. How can we then start to interact with new people on whatever platform we're trying to be more active on?
So one of the things that I always really like to do is kind of going back to your calm, confident. I will add another C to that, and that is to find common ground. So, for example, I graduated from the University of Florida. If I was feeling like, okay, I want to reach out to somebody in, again, I'm making this up, sales, maybe I look through my LinkedIn of contacts who also went to the University of Florida who might be in sales. Uh, the University of Florida had a football game this weekend. We won barely. So I might reach out to them and say, go Gators.
Yeah.
We pulled out another football win. Hope all is well with you, Tom. I actually had a question randomly about the sales processing platform you use. Would you have 5 to 10 minutes to chat with me this week about it? So going back to your calm and confident, looking for that common ground. So maybe it's a school that you went to, maybe it's a group that you're a part of. Hi, I saw we're both part of the Austin Entrepreneurial Network, or whatever that common ground is going to be for you. I think finding that, whatever it is, can help you feel, I guess, a little less intimidated of like, oh, I'm bothering them, or, oh, I don't know what to
Right.
say when I reach out. It can kind of give you that little like, hey, we're both part of this entrepreneurial network, or we both went to UF, or we're both women in business, or whatever that is. I think that can be finding that common ground can be a little bit helpful for you.
I think that's so great. And I want to add in then another C, which I think applies to what you just described, which is casual. I think that not every single work related communication has to be dear sir or madam. He- I would like to formally request that you give me a sales recommendation on this beautiful. It doesn't need to be formal. And in fact, I'll say in this age of I think the more formal you go and the more absolutely perfect of a message that you craft, I think the more it looks like an AI sales outreach, which we always want to appear as and hopefully be as human as possible. So I also wanted to jump in and say, okay, one of the things that you mentioned was maybe you're part of all these different groups, right? How would you say in your own life have you approached joining groups or joining meetups or doing any of that in your career or in your personal life? Or what do you think about joining in person or digital groups?
I think, obviously it's really important. I think probably what your listeners are hearing is like, no, like
Yes.
I'm introverted. Like, don't make me join a group. Don't
Yes.
make me do it. So I would say, in a perfect world, yes, if you could join an in-person group, one or two, that would be great. I think if that feels really intimidating, something that we've been talking about is, join a digital group, one or two digital groups. Maybe that's a little less scary, a little less intimidating. We talked about like, I have a digital group. You can go to getcoffeewithkim.com. We
Yes.
meet every single Wednesday at 1 p.m. But, I think in a perfect world, yes. I always think about when I was living back in New York, my approach, for better or for worse, was I sort of joined like a ton of groups, like that, like top of funnel. At one point, I think I was in like 6 groups. And then as the years went on and as like my entrepreneurial journey continued, I sort of whittled down those groups, because everybody has a time crunch. At the end of the day, you can't necessarily be in 8 groups doing all the meetings and all the things. It's like too much. So, now if I started this journey when I was 25 was when I started my company. I'm now 40. It's been 15 years. Those 8 groups have whittled down to maybe like 2 groups now that I'm really actively involved in. So what I always tell people is, even if you join one in-person group and one digital group, like that might be a perfect way to start. Cause I know, for the introverts listening, when they hear me even say the word 8 groups, they're like faces melting. They're like, 8 groups. No, not 8 groups. So I won't even say 8 groups. I'll say maybe like 2 groups, like one in person and one digitally, like that would, or if that's even too intimidating, maybe it's two digitally. But I think, again, kind of echoing what we talked about earlier, you can't just put all your eggs in one basket. You can't just say, well, I joined one group. It's like, okay,
Right.
we need at least one other group in there.
And I think it is about, and I know so many introverts, you're right, listening to this probably are thinking, joining one group? I have to join an entirely new group of people, of strangers. So I will give a pro tip for myself. When I join a new group or I join a place that I feel uncomfortable, I'll do a time limit, right? So if a meetup is 3 hours long, I don't actually go for necessarily the full 3 hours because that
No.
is so painful and so awkward. So, Kim, I don't know if you do this, but I definitely do a timer. So I set a time limit for how long I'll be there. And I just need to be there for the amount of time that I set, whether that's 30 minutes, 45 minutes, a full hour. I set that time limit and then I'll just try to stick it out for that time. And at the very end, I'll reassess and say, okay, am I having a good time? Then I'll stay for longer. Do I want to leave? And the answer is for me, as an introvert, 99% of the time, yes, I do want to leave. Even if I'm having a good time, I will then just leave, but I'll feel really good knowing that I showed up. And this is the last thing I want to talk about for our amazing chat is the idea of showing up both in person and also online. And I think it's incredibly powerful to show up. Kim, have you had an experience in your career? And I'm sure you had so many where showing up really opened that door for you.
Oh my god. I mean, Goldie, how much time do you have? Like,
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I feel like I have a
Thanks
lot.
for to make this live stream really long.
It's funny that you mentioned that because I give a talk all the time, and it's the name of the talk is called "Raise Your Hand," and it's something that I noticed that was happening a lot with entrepreneurs, but like sort of with my non-entrepreneurial friends, wasn't happening as much, and it's probably quite true for introverts. And that is, you know, I always tell people I think it's a fascinating study if you get around kids that are like ages 4 to like 7, and if you get around kids that age, like a kindergarten class or a first grade class, and you say, I'm making this up, like, raise your hand. Who wants to be, you don't even have to finish the sentence. You don't have to say who wants to be the line leader, who wants
Right,
to be first in line for snack, who
right,
wants to lead the class in the jamboree music time we're going to do.
right,
The kids are immediately like this. They're like, oh, me, pick me, pick me. Like, it's like a pick me bunch. Like
right,
you say, like, who wants to eat the first cupcake at the birthday party? They're like,
right,
me, like pick
right.
me. And what I think is so interesting is if you ask that same question, you take a room full of adults,
Mhm. Yeah,
accomplished adults in their 20s and their 30s and their 40s and their 50s, and you start a sentence with, you know, can I get a volunteer?
right,
And you don't even finish the sentence, by the way. It could be, can I get a volunteer to take the notes? Can I get a volunteer
right,
to lead the sales meeting? Here is most adults. I mean, just physically, they're kind of like, can I disappear? Like,
right,
a volunteer? No.
right.
It's the opposite. It's this like, don't pick me energy. And so, what I think is so interesting is like, where did our like bravery go? Like, how is it that a 6-year old is more brave than a smart, talented 46-year old? Where did that go? And so I think sort of harnessing that, childlike spirit, if you will, a little bit will go a long way because, again, to use the classroom example, if the teacher has up on the board, 2 plus 2 equals blank,
Right.
unless you raise your hand and say the answer's 4, the teacher's not a mind reader. The teacher's looking at the 30 kids going, all right, who knows what 2 plus 2 is? And, somebody's going to raise their hand and say the answer's 4. And so I use that example because whether it's your boss or, somebody at your company is going, okay, who do I give this promotion to? Who can really step up as my assistant? Who can really step into the coordinator position? Who can step into the vice president position? Who can step into the assistant manager position? If you're sitting there in the room, hunched over with this don't pick me energy, you know, how do they know to call on you? Like if you don't raise your hand and say, I am ready to lead the sales meeting. I am ready to be a senior assistant instead of a, junior assistant. If you don't raise your hand a little bit, just like the teacher doesn't know how to call on you, the people you work with don't know how to call on you. So, I think harnessing a little bit of that childlike spirit, that childlike wonder of, I am going to raise my hand for this opportunity. I am going to, raise my hand and volunteer for, taking notes in the meeting or whatever it is. I think that that's a really powerful lesson that, again, I haven't quite figured it out. It's not like I've run a scientific experiment, but I've been around my nieces and nephews enough to see that, there is some difference between a 6-year-old and a 46-year-old, and we lost that along the way somewhere.
Right. I think that there is such a bravery that kids have where it's not even bravery, truly. It's just a curiosity and it's an excitement to be involved. And I think we do as adults lose that along the way, or we learn certain social cues that say, okay, maybe we shouldn't speak up in this situation. Maybe we should stay quiet. Maybe we should let somebody else have a turn. Maybe we should. And I think for so many of us, we start to crawl into our own little shells. So I think it is so helpful to raise your hand. And of course, we all know the person at work that raises their hand 100% of the time, right? And then never gives everyone else an opportunity. But I'm sure that who is listening to this today are the folks that almost never raise their hands. So definitely, if you're hearing this, I think the homework from this particular chat is that in the next couple of weeks is if there is an opportunity for you to raise your hand, please raise your hand, write a post about it on LinkedIn and then tag myself and tag Kim, who is amazing. And Kim, where can people find you online or in the general ecosystem of everything?
Totally. I'm definitely on LinkedIn, so that's a great place to find me. I always joke it's quite easy to find me on Instagram as well because you just start typing in Kim Kardashian. So you start typing in KIM
Yeah.
KA, and I'm the first one under Kim Kardashian. So I always joke if you're looking for the girl that's less voluptuous with little makeup, I'm right under there. So Kim Kaupe on Instagram and LinkedIn, that is where I spend the most time, and that is the best place that you can find me.
Amazing. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. This was so fun.
So I'm so excited to be joined by Sheena Yap Chan. It's an absolute honor to welcome her. She is a Wall Street Journal bestselling author, keynote speaker, and a powerful voice behind the globally recognized podcast, The Tao of Self-Confidence. And her second book, Bridging the Confidence Gap, is out now. Driven by her own journey of overcoming cultural barriers, Sheena is dedicated to closing the gender gap by empowering women, especially Asian women, to embrace their authentic selves, move beyond self-limiting beliefs, and awaken the rock star leader within. Sheena creates a vital space for women to build the courage to be seen, heard, and respected, making her the perfect voice for our conversation today on confidence, visibility, and the unique strengths of introverts. Sheena, welcome.
Hey, Goldie, super excited to be here today. Thank you so much for having me. Can't wait to just dive in.
Yes, I'm so excited you're here today. Today is the launch day of my book, Personal Branding for Introverts. And I mean,
Woohoo!
funny because I was recently on your podcast also talking about this book, and I should have it right here, but I actually have your second book, Bridging the Confidence Gap. It's sitting somewhere in my in my house. And next time we talk, I will have it on camera. But it's also a great book, and we'll get into it a little bit later about some of the lessons that introverts can also take away from that book. But let's start with, I think, the most basic question. I'm sure you get asked this one, Sheena, all the time. What does confidence mean to you? but beyond just the surface level definition, and how can introverts also define it?
Yeah, I think the most important thing when it comes to confidence is just knowing that you're capable. And it doesn't mean that you have to know everything at once. You don't have to know anything, but you know you can figure it out as you go, right? Like, say you have an idea, you want to put it out there, you just start messy, you'll figure it out, you'll fumble along the way because you have the confidence to make it happen. And most entrepreneurs that you see or people in the media that you see, they just started with an idea and just went for it. They didn't know if it was going to work or not work. They just knew they had it in them to go out there and do something. So, really knowing how capable you are, because this is why I wrote my second book, Bridging the Confidence Gap, because a lot of women don't feel like they're confident enough or capable enough to go out there and do something. And because of this, the World Economic Forum mentioned that total gender parity would be achieved at the earliest in the year 2158.
Wow.
So like 133 years from now, right? And recently I just talked to someone who bought my recent book, and she mentioned how being able to read that book, she finally went and applied for the job interview that she's always wanted. Because now she realized, okay, if these people can do it, I can do it. So she just went for it without any expectations, but she got the interview. She went through 3 rounds of interviews and got the job. And she told me, because of your book, I was able to get my dream job. And hearing things like that is what lights me up the most. Seeing women, seeing their own capabilities and just going for it. So for me, that's what confidence is about.
Okay, so because we're definitely talking about confidence now, and you are for sure the confidence queen, I think let's jump into it. Another question. When the pressure to show up feels overwhelming for introverts, what's some advice for how they can show up in their workplace if they're already at a job, right? We definitely just talked about applying for a job, but showing up at their workplace. What is a way that they can feel less overwhelmed by showing up?
Yeah, I mean, before we start, just because I talk about confidence all day, I still go through a lot of anxiety. I still fear a lot of things. I still hold back a lot. So, you know, all those feelings are normal and valid, right? Because we're human and we're always stepping up to the next plate, right? That's why imposter syndrome kicks in, because we're going into another level. So it's going to feel uncomfortable. It's going to feel weird. So like even showing up at work, it's something you're not used to doing, right? So one of the things that I share in the book is having low risk confidence, which is just you practice in just small areas, right? Maybe there's a coworker that you have at work that you can just kind of like practice showing up at work, whether it's just like saying hi or just showing up at a meeting. It's important to just start really small and build your way up, because it's those small, actionable daily steps that yield the great results. And also knowing you don't have to do it alone. Have an accountability partner that can help you get on track, right? Because a lot of us, we feel like, well, how can I do this? Well, it doesn't always have to be yourself. That's why like Goldie wrote this book, because she understands what it means to be introvert and showing up and how uncomfortable it can be, right? When I saw Goldie write that book, I was like, "Oh my god, so many people are going to want to read this because there's so many introverts out there." And it's like the number one question I get from every single person. How do you be confident while being an introvert? And a lot of people don't realize your actions speak louder than words, right? Just take that action. Just be able to show up in these little spaces, right? Start really small, and also be okay that you don't have to do this alone. Be okay to ask and receive help, which is something in Asian culture that we're not taught to do. That took a lot for me to realize, like, oh, I need to be okay with this too, because this is something that was culturally taught to me and that was passed down for generation to generation. So I hope that kind of helped out.
Absolutely. I think culturally, I also feel that pressure to stay behind the scenes and not show up. And that's why for me, it was really important to talk about personal branding for introverts, because I think so many people who have cultural reasons to not show up become more introverted too, because they want to hang back, they want to be behind the scenes. But I want to talk about something that Sheena, you mentioned that I think is so cool, and that is an accountability partner. So let's go through this a little bit. Where could someone potentially find their next or their first accountability partner? And is this someone that, and I'm just softballing this question to you, is this someone that can be an accountability partner for life, for work, for different areas of what they do? I'd love to hear more.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can have accountability partners for different things, right? For business, for health, for personal, or you can have them all in one. You pick and choose what works for you, of course, right? What might work for me might not work for you. Sometimes that accountability partner could be your friend, in personal life, can be your friend in business life, because of course, it's different when you're doing things in business versus personal, right? Not everyone can understand what you go through, especially when you go through that loneliness. I don't know if you have, I feel it all the time. And that's why for me, having platforms is so important, because when I feel lonely,
Definitely
I
when we
can,
were creating in that vacuum, right?
yeah, yeah, I need like to listen to an interview, read a book, or see someone on social media like you, just going out there, making waves. That helps me keep moving forward. So accountability doesn't always also have to mean it's a person. It could be books, it could be podcasts, it could be YouTube videos. I love watching people's interviews, especially like Kihui Kwan, who was a major movie star in the 80s in like two movies, right? Stand
Right,
by Me and Indiana
right,
Jones. And then for like 20 to 30 some odd years, was nobody heard from him, right? And all of a
yeah,
sudden, Everything Everywhere All at Once came out, and it helped him revive his career. But, in between, I can understand his struggle, because it was so hard to have Asian roles in Hollywood or even apply for them, because there was
right.
always this one narrative, right? And he had to work behind the scenes, because at that time there wasn't anything. And when Crazy Rich Asians came out, that's when he said, "Oh no, now that there's more Asians out there, I'm gonna go out there and do it." So when
Right.
I hear stories like that, that fills me up, and realize that, oh, he went through a lot of struggle. I understand his pain, because I've been through the same struggle. I've been through the same pain, and it sucks. I think at one point he lost his health insurance because he couldn't get any work for a year because it was a pandemic. So like it's stories like that that helps me be accountable, and just listening to different audios, following people. So accountability looks different for everybody.
That totally makes sense. So it sounds like to me that one of the things that you were inspired by, Sheena, is stories, hearing a lot of stories from other people. And of course, because I wrote this book, Personal Branding for Introverts, a lot of it is defining the story that you're telling to the outside world, which then becomes the reputation that other people reflect back onto you. So, how do you confidently define your story?
Yeah, I mean, it took a while for me to practice sharing my stories, and also starting my podcast, I got to listen to over 900 women's stories. So being able to hear their stories also fueled me, right? When I hear women fly plane with their feet because they were born with no arms, like that inspires me to go beyond, right? To stretch out more. And for me, it's just learning to just practice sharing my story, and actually use like a simple framework that everyone can use. I even use it till this day on my podcast is, what was your life like before? What was the aha moment, and what your life is like now? That simple framework can be so powerful. And I've used that same framework in my podcast, and I've generated over 900 stories because of it. And so, it doesn't have to be like anything hard to tell. It's just something simple. It could be something as simple as like being at home with your kids and why you want to work from home, or why you want to go to Costco on a Wednesday, because nobody wants to go to Costco on the weekend.
Right. Right. Wait, then I have to ask, what was your aha moment?
I think for me, well, my aunt passed away 12 years ago or 13 years ago from a horrific accident. And that made me realize, like, oh my goodness, I could be gone at any second, any day, and I have nothing to show for. Like, I didn't go out there and live life on my terms. And at that time, I didn't really want to wait till I retire. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but
Mhm.
I just wanted to do all these things while I still can, right?
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
and so and it didn't happen overnight. I still, like, had to deal with my own demons, but I did make the leap. And even when I made the leap, I didn't know what I was doing, but that was the beginning and realizing, all the things I had to unlearn, all the things that I was capable of, being able to interview all these women. I when I started the podcast the first 5 years, I didn't even know what to do with it. I didn't monetize it. I just knew I needed a platform. And, it wasn't really till the pandemic that made me realize, like, I don't have to do this alone. Like, I can have a community, I can have other people who have better talents and things than me, um, and just be in my own genius, whatever that may look like. And I know sometimes we can't find it because the things that we do feel so normal to us,
Right.
but for other people, it's very foreign, right? They're like, "How do you do it?" And I'm like, "I just do it." And it's so funny because I've been doing this for 10 years
Right.
and I never had a framework. Because when people would ask me, how did you do it? I'm like, I just did it. And that's all I would say. And I realized, what? I actually need a framework to help people realize what they can do. And so, and it's funny because we chatted about this like a couple weeks ago. It's like
Yeah.
for 10 years, 2 books, podcast, I never had a framework until now. And so now I've been using that framework in talks, and a lot of people have loved it. Like they're just like, "Oh, this makes sense. Oh, how did you come up with this?" And I was like, "It's from my own experiences, right?"
And for
So,
anyone who wants to know, the framework is called Visible, right, Sheena?
yeah.
And it makes absolute sense with self-confidence because you want to be visible through your self-confidence. So I think it's incredibly powerful framework, and it's very interesting to think about how we do show up and how we do become visible at work. And I know you've given so many talks over the years, especially since starting this podcast and starting and writing the books. And of course, you have a Wall Street Journal um, best-selling book, which is amazing. And I'm so thankful you're my friend. And I do want to talk about one thing that I know introverts, they just get hives over. And I personally am not this kind of introvert. So I'd love to hear your thoughts, Sheena. What kind of advice do you give people for public speaking that feel uncomfortable with showing up physically on stage and speaking to, say, even a group of 10 of their peers? How do we get over that uncomfortableness and speak on stage?
Yeah, I think sometimes we have to get to the root cause. Why do you feel scared? Why do you doubt yourself? Was there some time in your life that contributed to that, right?
Mhm.
So like trauma holds on to a lot of those things, and if we don't work through our traumas, then we can't show up. Then we start feeling all these feelings, right? So an example is, I always share on stage how I failed kindergarten in the Philippines for coloring outside the lines of a photo. And it's funny when I like ask people, how many of you have failed kindergarten? And I'm literally the only person who would raise their hand up because it sounds so ridiculous, right? Like
Yeah.
all because I couldn't color one photo within the lines. Like I failed kindergarten, moved to another school and redo kindergarten all over again. And because of that, um, you know, from that moment till like my mid 30s, I always thought anything I touch would be an instant failure. So sometimes I never even tried because I just assumed it would fail. And I didn't realize that stemmed from my childhood at the time when I failed kindergarten. And really, if I had the proper personal development habits, then I wouldn't have seen that as failure. One person saw it as failure. So just because one person saw it as failure doesn't mean it's the absolute truth. If I had the proper work done on myself, I would have seen that I was just always meant to do something different, something outside the lines. I was always meant to color outside the lines. So working on your trauma is really important, and sometimes we don't even know what that looks like. So it's important to seek a professional mental health therapist if you can. I wrote a whole book about trauma, which is right here because I understand how that really affects us, especially growing up in Asian culture. We're not taught to um, go out and be seen and be visible. We're taught to stay in the background, never make any noise, do as you're told, whatever feelings you have, keep it to yourself. So we repress a lot of these feelings, not knowing it really hurts us. So that's one thing I really would suggest someone is, get to the root cause why you feel that way, right? For me, what I've done, because I still get a lot of anxiety when I go on stage,
Mhm.
like a lot of anxiety. Like I just want to make sure I have the best talk that I can give that the audience can walk away with.
Right.
And even Bono till this day still gets scared going on stage. So I think also if we share these stories, it's important. Like sharing like, yeah, I'm not always confident when I go on stage. In fact, I'm like sweaty palms, like stomach like churning, like it's uncomfortable, but I keep doing it because I have a bigger purpose. So I think also having a bigger purpose is important. Like maybe you want to show your daughter that, anything is possible, or maybe you want to to help people with what you have to offer, right? I think that's another thing that's really important because you're willing to do those things when you know you're not doing it for yourself.
Right.
Especially as women, right? We're natural born caretakers even if we have kids or not. So, I think those are the most important things, and when you can learn to get out of your own way, all of the right things will start appearing. So,
I love that. Learn to get out of your own way. I think so many of us, and myself included, I think some of us self-sabotage, right? I think that sometimes we see something, and I just did a post the other day about fear versus gut. And I think that we, especially as women, but pretty much everyone experiences this where we have fear and fear shouts, you can't do it, you're not good enough, you shouldn't do that. Versus your gut is like, I don't know if I like that person or that person has stranger danger. I don't know if you had stranger danger also where you were, but in America, that was like the phrase that we always heard all the time was stranger danger. But I think that if we can identify what comes from fear, as opposed to what is our gut, what is our instincts telling us, like, this is not the right path for us, I think then we can start to make choices that are really brave, that are really confident, that are really courageous, because we will be able to overcome this fear feeling that tells us, like, you're not good enough. And I always think it's helpful to try one step at a time. So doing one small thing that gets us closer to our, if we do have goals, if we do want to help others, if we do want to be more present, if we do want to build our personal brand, what is that one small thing that we can do to take a single step forward? And before we get into one small thing, I want to actually go back, Sheena, to something that you were talking about. You mentioned earlier, so I was trying to remember my little Swiss cheese brain what you had mentioned, and that was platforms. So you have such a powerful platform with your podcast. And for myself, I'm very active on LinkedIn. I know you're active on LinkedIn too, and a couple of other platforms. How can introverts or really anyone identify one platform that would be helpful for them to be on to, say, grow their personal brand presence?
yeah, I mean, I think it depends on the personal branding goals that you want to achieve, right? Like, of course, if you want to be like an influencer, like Instagram, TikTok are really great for those things. If you want something more professional, then of course, LinkedIn is a place to be. Like, I love LinkedIn. So I like using LinkedIn a lot. It's the only social media I pay for. If you want to do more video interview style, YouTube is a great platform. It's still still the second biggest like search engine on the internet. So
Right.
you you have to pick and choose what makes sense for you, what you like to do. If you don't like to do video, then just do audio podcasts, right? Like utilize that. Spotify has been investing a lot in podcasts, so that they have more people coming into their platform. So maybe that could be the platform that you use. But again, right? Like I think it's important to test these out, see what works, see what doesn't work, see what makes sense for you, and then just go for it. Just because Instagram might be more for influencers doesn't mean you can't talk about business, right? Like
Right.
there's so many people out there who utilize it. So, and you can take that one piece of content and repurpose it on all the different social media platforms, whether it's YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn. I mean, a lot of people have been doing short form videos. Everyone likes watching them. Every platform has something that they use to promote short form videos, right? Like even YouTube, you can start doing shorts because they understand how powerful that is to keep their audience on the app. So yeah, that would be my advice.
Yes, I think short form vertical videos are certainly having their renaissance now. And I myself watch the trashiest vertical video series that are not necessarily related to business, but are really fun. But I do know that so many people use vertical short form video, and on LinkedIn, the platform that you and I are both on, they definitely have been optimizing for vertical videos. And certainly on almost every other platform, you can post your short form videos as long as they're under a certain time limit. And for each platform, that varies and that changes over time. You know, it's funny because another platform that I've been playing around with a little bit more is Threads. So, Sheena, I don't know if you've tried using Threads. I think for writers, especially, it's so fun to have a platform that's text based.
Yeah, I definitely love using Threads as well, especially if you have a book, if you have it's a great community to be on, so I have been dabbling on it. I do like it better than X sometimes.
I think it's definitely a different audience. And also, I think that now what's powerful with threads, and I'm sure you know this, so I'm explaining this for the general audience, is now there's, for example, there's highlighted communities, so you can post to we both write books, so we're both posting to book threads. There's also author threads. Um, there's I'm sure there's cookies threads. There's a ton of thread communities that now Threads is featuring. And that's really powerful because you can jump in and know that that community is incredibly active and people are looking under that specific, it's not even a hashtag, it's a category. That's how they do hashtags on Threads. So you're not using multiple hashtags or categories, you're using one. And it's been really interesting to navigate through a platform that isn't prioritizing, say, 20 hashtags, right? Like you would on TikTok or another platform, but it's prioritizing really one. I also want to talk about really something I think is very interesting. So, with the advent of AI, I'm not going to talk about leveraging AI or anything like that, but I do want to talk about something that's happened to me. And Sheena, I'm curious if this has happened to you. So, I've had people start to reach out to me saying, you know, Goldie, so a reporter at a very big place reached out to me and said, Goldie, I looked up who has a book coming out for introverts using AI, and you were the one result. And so, and I'm not, there's other books that are, you know, coming out through introverts and things like that. But it got me thinking that I really believe that AI is the new SEO. It's
Oh
the
yeah.
new search engine. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I haven't had that yet. I hope to do that. And for sure. I mean, Spotify just I think has a deal with OpenAI to have like you can shop on AI. So
Wow.
they're doing a collaboration where, yeah, they can you can start buying merch or s- buying stuff, utilizing like Spotify. So it is a big thing, and AI SEO is also going to be the biggest thing as well. So when people search, what's the best book on confidence? Who is Sheena Yap Chan? Like I've asked myself on AI, like, who am I, right? And it gives you all these things, and it's just so cool to see that, right? Like you can just ask AI a question and I'll put up everything.
And
Um,
I definitely want to interject here really quickly and say, so when I was writing the bios for you, Sheena, and for Kim, who also guested earlier in the show, it was funny because I put it through I just asked, like, what are some bullet points of some big hits, have that they've done? And I put it through um, 2 different AI versions, LLMs, and then I saw the results, and it was funny because one of them, and I'm not going to name names here, but one of them was really accurate, right? And that was the one I went with, and one of them was really inaccurate. So it had a bunch of things, and I had to go onto both your website and also Kim's website and be like, what are they really working on? Because, and this is why, please keep your website, if you have one, regularly updated so that people can sanity check against, even if they use AI, even if they use just regular search engines like Google, always try to keep at least the front page of your website updated with what you're currently working on. It doesn't need to be fancy, but I had to go on to each of your websites to make sure I'm saying the right thing and talking about what you are currently working on. Because I'll say this, one of the AI places that I tried to go to, it was not accurate. So that's just a word of caution. And the last thing you want to do is when you have amazing guests on your show, you don't want to give them the wrong bio or talk about something that they didn't do. But anyways, I think that that's fascinating. I think AI SEO is where we're at. And I also think that everything that you talk about in the Tao of Self-Confidence and bridging the confidence gap, and what I talk about in personal branding for introverts, that all will building that profile will help you show up in ways that you cannot expect. And it used to be very traditionally so that we would show up on page one of search results. And now you want to show up as result number one on whatever people are inputting into AI. So I think this is a little bit helpful to think about AI sometimes like that is it's our new search engine. So to me, it's a really powerful and interesting thing to think about. But let's go back to something we were talking about previously, Sheena, and that is your first small step. So I know that so many people out there are probably overwhelmed when we're talking about these big ideas. We're like, build a presence here, do this here, do all this big stuff. But I want to start with one small step. What is one small step that specifically introverts can do to grow their personal brand, grow their confidence, grow something positive in by Friday of this week? What
By
can
Friday?
someone do? Yeah.
Oh, one thing I've done to help women was I did a talk about a couple months ago, and we did this exercise where we all posted a selfie of ourselves on social media and just share one thing that they've learned from the webinar. It could be a quote, it could be you could be just I was taught to do this practice, so here's my selfie.
Right.
And it was a great turnout, right? Because your face is your brand. So, um, even just having the selfie and just sharing like a quote or sharing like, hey, I was taught to do this exercise. I had to do this in 24 hours. You can share how scary it is for you to do this, but you're being courageous today. And here's your selfie. And the women were like getting so much engagement. And then when we just asked them to tag us so that they know that we provided that exercise. But just start with a selfie. Just it doesn't have to be the most perfect selfie. It could be just taking it right now, right? You could be like, here's me with my coffee and my face.
Yes, and if you do take a selfie and you follow Sheena's exercise, please tag the both of us in that and say that you saw us here on my book launch day and you saw me, Goldie Chan, and you saw Sheena Yap Chan. Actually, I just realized that we're not related, everyone who's out there watching this.
Oh,
I mean, I think we might distantly be related in the way that all Chans are distantly related.
so funny story.
Yes.
My last name is supposed to be just Yap. So it should
Oh,
really be just Sheena Yap. But in the Philippines, they made a mistake on my dad's birth certificate. So Chan's actually my grandfather's first name. And at that time, if you try to change it, it will take forever.
right.
Like it's just so slow. So my dad just kept it. And it worked out because I'm literally the only Sheena Yapchan on the internet. There's literally only 5 Yapchans in the world, which is me, my
Wow.
sisters, and my parents. So,
I
so
mean, so
that was
that
the
worked
story.
out for the OG Google search results that you were the only one that shows up for that.
Yeah.
That's so good. I will say this as somebody named Goldie and Goldie Chan, there's not a lot of us out there. I think there's 5 of us total in the world. And I'm sorry to all the other Goldie Chans because I absolutely dominate all of the search results on Google search. So I'm very sorry if any of you are upset with me for that. Please continue to create. You're wonderful, all the other Goldies out there. Yes, it is so interesting to see that our names are similar, but not the same. But also, yes, once again, if you want to do an exercise, please start. Also, I will say this: if you attend an event and you hear a great speaker, and you think, I really want to amplify that speaker that I heard, it's always helpful to drop a quote from that speaker. It's always helpful to tag that speaker in anything that you've seen with them, or if you follow them, say, I just followed blah, 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 because I heard them speak at this conference. All of that is helpful because conference organizers look at that. They want to know that the speakers that they bring on are actually empowering, that they're helpful, that they resonate with their audiences. So every time you do that, you are helping the speaker that you heard speak do that, because so many people never post anything after they've heard a speaker talk. So you are absolutely helping speakers when you do that, when you post about them, when you share that. And I love this exercise from Sheena. When you share that selfie, make sure that you tag Sheena, make sure that you tag the speaker that you're thinking of. I think it's always good to make sure that you're closing the loop by saying, "Hey, I found this talk helpful, and I found this speaker really great." And so, but and of course, if you know anyone that would be excited to hire either myself to talk about person branding and introversion, or hiring Sheena to talk about confidence, please tag them below too. We're always excited to talk to new conference organizers, or if you have something that you'd like us to speak at individually, thank you. Please tag them below. Okay, so let's talk about one more thing here. Let's talk about community. So let's talk about developing communities both online and offline that can support ultimately our goals. So I know for myself, I have a massive community, very thankful for it, on LinkedIn that follows me specifically for personal branding and for branding and marketing insights. And I've cultivated that since, I want to say, really intentionally since 2017, since I blew up with all my videos. But Sheena, how do you think and how do you advise people that are looking to build their own communities from scratch?
Yeah, I mean, I think you one pick a platform that works for you, whether if it's online or offline.
Mhm.
And a community can just start with like one or two other people, right? Just start small. And slowly as people will talk about it, it'll grow, right? A lot of people think, well, I only have one person, this was a failure. No, it starts with one person
Yep.
and you build up on it, right? Like, recently I just decided to start like a speaking leads newsletter because I realized so many people are like, how do you get these speaking engagements? Where do you find them? And I was like, oh, you know what? I'll just create it and every month I'll send a list of 50 plus curated events that people can apply for. Especially as women, it's so important that we are on those stages because sometimes I'm the only woman on stage talking and I'm like, what is going on? It's 2025. And the minute I
I'm
told
writing
one
down that newsletter right now.
the minute I told one person, they said, "Send me the link," because they know how much work it is to find speaking engagements, to find people who are looking for speakers. I mean, Goldie, I know you know that too.
Yep.
And so I said, you know what, I'll just create a list because so many people are asking me, like, how do you do it? How do you do it? Where do you find it? And especially if you want to grow your speaking in 2026, you have to start applying now, right? Because
Right.
some of them are like preparing like 6 to 9 months before the actual event. So the more you put yourself out there, the more you're gonna get like speaking stages, right? Like
Right.
this year alone, I've been able to speak for women in plumbing, in manufacturing industry, cybersecurity, fintech, virtual reality, finance, taxes, accountants, so many different ones because I just made the decision to put myself out there and find where those people are looking for speakers. So, to be honest, I was really scared of launching that because of my own, insecurities. And I realized, you know what? I'm talking about confidence and I'm not even talking about this. I'm talking about visibility and I'm not even talking about this. So I'm
Right.
talking about it.
No, I think that that's so powerful. And I think I do want to take away also something from simply you launching this newsletter, which is you have an area of expertise and you know how to speak, because this is something you've quite literally done so much, especially over the past year. You've had your speaking career really bloom and blossom. So I think that that is an area of expertise that's really powerful for you to share with others. And I think that to me also is one of the starting points of a personal brand that eventually we want to, of course, build towards confidence, which is thinking really carefully about how we are growing our area of expertise, but how are we sharing and showcasing our area of expertise? So, for many years, I wrote for Forbes on personal branding and storytelling in the digital age. And this was my way of showing my expertise is I was writing on it constantly. So now I show up in Google search results, but I also show up in AI as a personal branding expert because I literally have hundreds of articles on the internet about personal branding from so many different angles and so many case studies. So it is so helpful to showcase your expertise in many different ways. So Sheena, I think what you're doing is so powerful because you showcase your expertise not only in a podcast, but you have two books, but also you give talks all the time. But now you have this newsletter. So you're creating so many different streams also of ways for people to find you. And I think that that is also helpful is once you figure out what that brand is, what you want to be known for, don't be afraid to also be present in multiple different ways, right?
Yeah, for sure. And, especially if you want to be seen as an expert, it doesn't matter what that stage looks like. You're out there speaking, you're out there sharing your expertise. You have an audience, and that audience could be the person who would want to work with you, right? Because a lot of people that I've interviewed, they said, I was on this panel and then someone wanted to work with me, and then their coaching business, consulting business grew in from that because of one speaking engagement. So you can be one speaking engagement away from working with other brands, right? And being able to showcase your expertise, showcase what your message is, promote your products and services, because ultimately you are the brand, right? You are the brand. Like Goldie, everyone knows you as the introvert, right?
Right.
Expert with green hair, right? Or every time I see green, I see Goldie, right? I wear red because red is powerful. So when people
I
see
know.
red, they see me.
We're very holiday themed, you and
Yeah.
I.
So start now, right? I mean, it's never too late. And this is why I created the newsletters, because people need to start now, start looking for those leads, applying for them. Because for me, it's a numbers game, right? If I play at 100,
Right.
if I get 10, I'm happy, because that's still 10. 10 is better than zero. And I can still utilize those 10 for marketing, for branding, for sharing my expertise, but for being seen in front of an audience, right? In front of a paying audience, because they do pay to attend those conferences. So there's so many different benefits that you can do. And people will trust you more when they see you in person. So yeah.
Yeah. I do think that showing up to speak on panels, to do your own keynotes or do workshops, you are always one step away from your next client, your next partnership, your next partner. You are then able to access more open doors because you're physically present. And also, we're human at the end of the day. So I always feel like humans like to meet other humans in person, which I know is very terrifying for all the introverts out there who don't like to do in person. So may I offer something that I definitely talk about in my book too, which is one of the things that I do myself as an introvert is I try to give myself a break. If I'm at a conference that's all day, several days, that's very long, I try to give myself at least a 10-minute break. And in that 10-minute break, I will step outside. I will actually leave the venue. And for 2 of those minutes, I try to not be on my phone, not be on my computer. I try to not be on the internet. I try to be a little bit more offline. So that way I can reset my brain a little bit. But definitely at conferences where you feel overwhelmed, you can do it. You absolutely can do it. There are so many amazing introverts who are also speakers, who are also panelists, who run entire events and conferences. So you're not alone. So many of us are doing our best when our batteries, our little introvert batteries, are drained down to zero. And we're finding our own new ways to replenish those batteries. Sheena, do you have any ways that you replenish your introvert battery when you feel drained, especially at a public event like that?
Oh yeah, I take breaks. Sometimes when people want to go out, I'm like, I'm gonna go back to my hotel. I just need to recharge, like, because there's so many people, there's so many things happening. Like, you get exhausted, right? So I just like to Like if I have a hotel room, just stay in the hotel room, watch whatever is on TV, order some good food, and then just like call it a day. So yeah.
Well, I absolutely love that because I do the same thing, except very hyper specifically watch whatever version of Food Network they have in their country. So I was in Romania and I found out Romania has their own version of Food Network. It looks really different than American Food Network, but it's really, it was very fun and they had a lot of good recipes on it. So I like to sit there and eat my hot Cheetos and watch Food Network is my absolute favorite thing to do in the hotel room. So, but our ordering food service so you get a well-balanced meal is also great too. So let's jump into one last thought here. If you could leave our listeners and our watchers with one truth about confidence and visibility, what would that be, Sheena?
I think the one truth is that, building confidence and visibility is not always easy, right? It's gonna suck. It's gonna suck way more than the opposite, but it's also
Right.
worth doing, right? Whatever struggle you're going through, we've all been through it, and we're cheering you on. So keep moving forward, keep moving forward imperfectly because perfection is a myth, and just take things one step at a time.
I love that. So you heard it here first. That is the one truth on confidence and visibility. And I will add something to that as well, which is, and Sheena, you just touched upon this, which is one small step. If you could take one small step forward, you're one step further than you were yesterday. And so I hope that you will do the homework that we assigned by Friday, which is take a selfie, tag both myself and Sheena in it with something that you learned during this chat or something that you thought about that really resonated with you, and tag both of us. And we're really excited to see that. And so, with that, I definitely want to wrap up and say thank you, everyone, for watching this amazing second interview. Stay tuned. I have a little bit more to say. And thank you again, Sheena, for joining us here on my book launch day. Yay!
Thank you so much for having me. Such an honor to be part of the book launch day. So everyone, get Goldie's book, especially if you're an introvert, this is the book.
Yay. Thank you, everyone. Bye. Okay, wow. Those were two amazing interviews. I hope you enjoyed them as much as I did. And please follow both Kim and Sheena here on LinkedIn or wherever else you can find them on their amazing websites. They are such cool and amazing people. I am so glad that you got to hear some of their insights. And with that being said, here's my book again. I know you're probably sick of it at this point, but it's my launch day, so I'm going to talk more about it. So yes, this is the book, Personal Branding for Introverts. I'm very excited. At one point, my hair color was actually exactly the color of this. It's a little darker right now, but if you order today, I want to say that I will try to put this up. I'm going to try to put up a link for a form. And if you're one of the first 100 people to sign up for that form, this week and you order a book, and for everyone who's pre-ordered the book, you can also sign up on this form. It's just truly the first 100 people who fill out this form. I will personally send out a mini care package to you. Please be in the United States only, though, because mail has been weird going between different countries. So, unfortunately, this is for US only. But if you are in the US, you order a copy of the book this week, or you've ordered a book in the past, please let me know. And I'm so happy to hand mail out a little care package of some fun goodies related to this wonderful, life-changing book, Personal Branding for Introverts. So now that we've kind of gone into some of the big lessons in the book, I wanted to say too, if you still want to support, there are a variety of different ways that you can support, and I'm going to go through some of them right now. So, first off, Amazon. If you are on Amazon, you can wish list or order the book on Amazon because every click and every order helps boost visibility of my book and helps it get to hopefully a #1 new release again every hour. I don't know if you know this, but on Amazon, every hour it's removed. And so you every hour have a chance to get that #1 new release, #1 bestseller in the category that it's in. So if you order the book on Amazon, it definitely has the possibility to do that too. And if you put my book on wish list, I think right now it's #6 on the Amazon wish list for my category. Yay! So I'm very excited about that. But please put on your wish list. Please order. And if you order on Amazon, of course, it's very easy and you'll get it, which is so neat, especially in the US, you'll get it same day. So I have to say then, so if you get it today, if you ordered the book, if you pre-ordered it, or you're ordering it right now, if you order a book, I have another way that you can help, and that is leaving a review. I know I am guilty of not leaving reviews myself. I am guilty of doing 3 reviews at once and then forgetting to review for months at a time. But if you order a copy of this beautiful hardcover, Personal Branding for Introverts book, and it's really funny to me because it almost looks like I'm holding something green screen in my hands, like it doesn't look real. But yes, this real amazing hardcover book, if you order a copy of this and you get it today or tomorrow or this week off of Amazon, or if you ordered the Audible version of it or I think the soft cover is not out yet, but if you ordered either version of it, please leave a review on Amazon, and especially bonus points if you leave a review that has an image on Amazon. And also, if you were on Goodreads, and I know this is so bad, I just created my author account this year for my book on Goodreads. And please connect with me first on Goodreads. I'm so excited to see what you're reading. But please leave a review on Goodreads too. Every review that you leave, and I'm asking for really honest reviews. So if you want to say, wonderful things, please do that. If you want to say slightly less wonderful things, you know what? Leave that review too, because I want your honest review of this book. So please leave a review. If you can, please leave an image because images and reviews on Amazon are super helpful. And if you want to earn the ultimate bony brownie bonus points, I can't say that right now. I need more coffee. Please leave a video review on Amazon. And if you do leave a video review, and once again, your honest video review, I will also send you a little care package if you're in the US. So leave a video review. I'd love to see it. And if you do, send me a message on LinkedIn. Let me know that you did it. Link me to it. And once again, I'll send you a little thank you. So thank you so much for considering those as some helpful ways. Those are some ways you can help online. And of course, ordering through amazing places like Bookshop, which supports local bookstores. So of course I love them. And you can support your local bookstore through Bookshop and order my amazing book. And also I want to say you can stop by in person to Barnes and Noble, your local Barnes and Noble. And I think every single Barnes and Noble across the country, which is wild, has one physical copy of my book in stock. So please, if you are in literally any state in the US, please go to your local Barnes and Noble. Please pick up the one physical copy of my book in stock because when you do that, it signals to Barnes and Noble, we should buy one more copy. And I'd love to sell 5 more copies of my book if possible, or however many Barnes and Nobles there are across the US. I'm sure there's a ton. I don't even know how many there are. I should have looked that up before I did this live stream. But go into your local Barnes and Noble, buy the physical copy of the Barnes and Noble book. And if you do that, if you buy the physical copy and you take a picture of it in the Barnes and Noble that you bought it and you post it online, what I will do is I will send you a signed book plate. I will send you a signature so you can stick it inside your book. So now your book is a first edition, wow, signed book that probably resells for $3 more than it did originally. But, who knows? Maybe someday that will become like Beanie Babies in its heyday. Maybe it'll be worth 5x more than it was. So if you buy the physical copy, that one lone sad and scared copy that's in your local Barnes and Noble, and you let me know and you send me pictures, you tag me on a social post about it, I will 100% mail you. And yes, this is me doing all of this. I will physically mail you a signed book plate that you can put inside of your amazing, delightful, wonderful, delicious Barnes and Noble copy of your book. Okay, so a few more things that you can do to help is request the book at your local bookstore. So there's a couple of bookstores that are here that are local to me in LA. Annabelle's is one, Lost Books is another, Last Bookstore is another, Book Soup is another bookstore that's local. All of these bookstores, they will 100% take you seriously if you say, hey, I want to buy a copy of this book. Can you bring it into the store? And they will bring in one glorious copy into the store. So if you can go into your local stores and request it and buy it through them, of course, that's wonderful because it supports local bookstores. And who doesn't love that? And speaking of bookstores, if you cannot afford the book or you just love going to your local library, I love going to my local library. Libraries are amazing. Yay. You can do a few different things. You can ask your local library to carry the book. And this can be as simple as when you're checking out your books, going to the help desk and saying, hey, I'd love to get in a copy of this book. And then they will put in the request for you. Or you can go online, and thank you to my friend Paul who did this for Boston Library System. You can go online and you can request the book for your local library system. And this helps so much because then the book gets read by so many. I mean, who knows an introvert that loves the library? I do. This can be then read by so many introverts who maybe don't have access to purchasing the book. So if you can get it into your local library, I would so appreciate it. And of course, if you take a picture of the book once it's in your local library and you take a picture of you at the library, you tag me in it, you send me a message, I will 1,000% repost that image because I love local libraries and I want to support you and the local library that you go to. So please do that. I am so happy always to repost amazing images. Okay, so of course I have to get to this part. So the other thing is that you could do with my amazing book is you can gift a copy to a friend, a colleague, an introvert in your life. I've had so many people tell me that they themselves are extroverts or ambiverts or that new term, outrovert, but they aren't the introvert, but they have a business partner or they have a romantic partner or they have an XYZ person in their life who is an introvert. I humbly ask you to consider this. Wait, is this perfect for holiday season? Why, yes, I think it is because it's green. Yay. I humbly ask that you consider gifting this book to someone who is an introvert in your life. And once again, if they find it helpful, please have them leave a review, have them send me a message. I so hope that this is helpful to all of the introverts that maybe feel like they can't have a personal brand because they don't want to go into a room and just shout, look at me, I'm so amazing. And this book is not about that at all. This book is about having expertise, which all of you who are watching this have, and sharing that expertise with others in a way that makes them want to connect with you, communicate. And one of my favorite phrases is be in conversation with you. So, my book is a way to be in conversation. So, you're considered for promotions. So, you're more considered by clients. So, you're more considered for opportunities. And I'll say that somebody recently read this, and all of these are reviews. The book isn't out yet when I'm recording this, but I had somebody say that it actually helped them also when they were at just a fun social party, that they used some of the tips and tactics for replenishing their introvert battery, and it was a little bit easier for them to be at that party. And that is 100% what I want, because when I'm at these parties, and I live in Los Angeles, so the parties are a lot and they're very often, I'm usually in the corner with the dog or cat curled up next to them. So part of what I do to not be only the person curled up with the dog or cat in the corner is I use some of these tips and tactics. So I hope that they are helpful. So let's get into it. We have a couple more minutes left. Please, a few more ways to help. Share a post or story on social media about the book. Please, once again, tag me. I will be resharing all this week, all of the amazing posts and content that you create. Recommend this, and this one is so huge. Maybe I should have said this one in the beginning. Recommend it to your book clubs. If you're in a book club, please let me know, and I will record a personalized message video to your book club if more than 4 or 5 of you buy a book. I will record a personal message. So consider this your free cameo time. I will record a message to your book club. Also, if you have any community groups that you're part of or any workplace groups that you're part of, I'm just about to start my tour of workplace groups at different big organizations. So I'm so excited to add you onto that list. And of course, if you are a professor or an educator and you want to add my book onto recommended reading, please do. And if you want to order some of my books for your classroom, let me know. And I'm also so excited to come in and do a talk with your class about personal branding, about introversion, about how often I dye my hair green, about any of those things. I am so excited to do that. So let me know. And of course, ending this with tag me if you do post any of this or you do any outreach. Let me know. The only time I don't know when something happens is when I'm not tagged and I'm not alerted. So please feel free to tag me on pretty much at this point any social media network, because I am on all of them and I will be reviewing all of it later today and tonight and throughout the week. So please tag me if you're sharing. And with that, thank you so much for joining me on my book launch day for Personal Branding for Introverts. It is my first book. It is my only book. And I appreciate if you've pre-ordered, if you're ordering, or you're considering ordering 10,000 copies today. And if you're that person ordering 10,000 copies a day, send me a message and I will send you also a care package because that's very generous. Thank you so much. I'm Goldie Chan, and I hope you'll read Personal Branding for Introverts.